Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says that political stability is a prerequisite for the economic stability and the foreign investment is the government's foremost priority. The Prime Minister was chairing the National Action Plan's Apex Committee meeting. Earlier, the Prime Minister also chaired a meeting to review the economic situation in the country, saying, let me quote him, "Our economy is stabilizing and we are prioritizing public relief. Tax evasion and its enablers will be held accountable," unquote. We've also seen earlier the International Monetary Fund has urged the authorities in Pakistan to broaden the tax base by targeting the untapped revenue sources. IMF's Mission Chief Nathan Porter says, let me quote him, "IMF was encouraged by the Pakistani authorities' reaffirmed commitment to economic reforms supported by 2024 Extended Fund Facility," unquote. We have also seen, owing to the efforts by the government, the economic indicators in the country have improved and continue to improve, which include the reduced inflation, increased remittances, decreased interest rate, current account posting surplus, and also Pakistan Stock Exchange touching record highs. And particularly today, it touched the record high of 95,856 points. To talk about all these aspects on the economic front, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Mr. Humayun Iqbal Shami. He's President, Pakistan Economic Forum. Mr. Shami, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Shikoh Atif, Senior Economist. Mr. Atif, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Shami, now these indicators, we just take a stock take of all these indicators. Owing to the government efforts, all the indicators have been improving continuously, and there is a desire on the part of the government also in order to continue to put in efforts in order to not only stabilize the economy, but rather getting the economy on such a track that leads into garnering the maximum positive dividends out. What exactly were the challenges for the government in order to steer the economy on right track, firstly?
Thank you very much. It's a very broad-based question, actually. The basic challenge which Pakistan was facing a year before was our external liabilities. That our balance of payment, balance of trade issues were on a very high rate, and we were seeing that we could not meet our external liabilities. This is why we have to go to IMF and we have to accept a lot of their conditions also. But gradually, now we are seeing that the remittances have increased, exports have increased, imports though increased, but they didn't increase in the on the pattern as we have seen the exports. So there is quite a good balance of payment we have seen, and I think for the last few months we are even seeing the surplus balance of trade in the country, which is very very unique, and hardly there have been few months in the 75% of the life of this country that we have seen this scenario, that we have seen the surplus in our trade balances. So these are the welcoming sign, and the GDP growth is there.
Do you think this particular surplus trade, balance of trade, actually owes to?
Because I told you that exports have increased about more than 20%, and in some sectors it has increased about 30% even. We are good bumper crops, and so this we have been able to export about $4 billion worth of our rice, which were $2 billion last year. Sugar we have export, we are able to export sugar, so most probably about $1 billion we can earn from there. Last year, this year also there was a shortfall in worldwide in the onion production. India stopped exporting onions, so Pakistan got, and Pakistan have been able to export even up to around $1,500 a ton. Onion almost, I think around $1 billion we earn from that. So about $8 billion we earn from the agricultural products, which was a very very healthy sign. And then we are seeing continuously the increase in the remittance sector, which has increased more than 30% in this year. So this is very healthy sign. So export and remittances, because balance of trade, balance of payment, this because our exports, are much more than our actual imports, So then the balance of these remittances, they actually cross subsidize, so this makes our balance of payment in the good and healthy position. So this is why if we have a total of that, and I mean receipts in the foreign exchange, like in the shape of exports and in the shape of remittances, in shape of services, IT sector also shown very healthy sign. So as comparing, and our imports and some other liabilities, external liabilities, which includes our debt reservicing also, that has balanced. Now it has balanced quite good, that it has balanced. Rather in the export, I mean it is showing a surplus sign for the last few months, so it's a very healthy sign. I think those challenges. Then our second challenge was definitely our internal which is our local liabilities, which are our budgetary deficit, which was very huge. Last year we had paid almost 8.5 trillion rupees in shape of debt reservicing, which this year I am expecting at least to fall of 2 trillion rupees, because due to decrease in the monetary rates, and so then government have been able to save something from the discos, there, the expectation which we were fearing in the subsidy which we had to give to the discos, that that is showing that there has been some surplus in it, almost 170 billion rupees, and but at the same time we will definitely face challenges like taxation, because our tax revenue will decrease this year definitely. In my budget transmission here on 12 June, I have categorically said that 40% tax increase or the set tax target, increase in tax target is I mean beyond our capacity. It cannot be met. I on the PTV I told this thing on 12 June that it will not be possible. Last year it was 30, we achieved 30%, but our inflation rate was over 28%. So it was only
but there has been an improvement on that particular front.
So now inflation is about 5%. 5-6%. So definitely we cannot achieve that target. So but the thing is, savings are there, savings are coming up, so this will cross match. So budget deficit will not increase. Budget deficit rather will be on a positive side as comparing to last year. Despite the decrease in the, I think this is why the IMF was made satisfied, because the budget deficit, our budget deficit will not grow at all.
Your point is well taken. Let me bring in another participant in the discussion. I'll come back to you to talk about in detail regarding as to what the Prime Minister has said as to the crackdown against the tax evaders. Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, a former advisor, Ministry of Finance, joining us on phone line. Dr. Najeeb, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. How do you look at the overall economic indicators after the government's put in efforts? We see the stock exchange, the Pakistan Stock Exchange, also touching the record highs, and we've also seen reduced inflation. The interest rate has been cut down, increased remittances, and also the current account posting a surplus.
So Jawad, whenever you and I have spoken, I've always maintained that Pakistan's prudent policy making requires that we stick with the fund engagement and make sure there are no hiccups when we are engaging with the fund. Pakistan's engagement with the fund has taken Pakistan's macro stability from the SBA to from a nascent stage to a more permanent sort. Pakistan's macro stability simply means that inflation has tended to go down from the highs of 30s to around 7% last month. I think November actually clocked under 5%. Pakistan's current account turned surplus in last month. Overall, we are in the balance, it's financeable. So consequently, our reserves have gone up to about $11 billion, and we are comfortable on that position. The main thing that happened being in an IMF engagement is that the gross external financing needs have been comfortably met or have been comfortably handled. What that means simply is that we needed about $16 billion of rollovers, including commercial and friendly countries. That's been done. So overall, you have a comfortable external balance. You have now been able to reduce your policy rate by, a healthy percentage, coming down from 22% all the way to 15%. And that happened because inflation estimates actually came down far more sharply than were estimated. There was a base effect. The food prices came in, comfortable, as agriculture growth last year was near 6% odd. International oil prices dropped. The rupee was stable. So all in all, this is the story. But when I look at this, so what do I take away? I'm always said you stay with the fund. The fund, Jawad, and so we now talk, post-engagement with the fund in the 3 years. We must start looking at that and build a narrative. How do we move ahead? The important part here is the following. The fund engagement gives authorities time and space to do fundamental work on the economy. That's the most important part. Your external needs for the next 3 years are met. Your fiscal has started to, stabilize with interest rates coming down, so your expenditure management is a bit easier. But the fundamental work is still for us to do. For example, on the agriculture income tax, how do we move to a fairer society? It's not about what the fund's saying that, you should have taxation. It's what we want to think as a fairer society. For the social cohesion of Pakistan, you cannot have a sector which is 20% of the overall economy, and in terms of taxation contributes anywhere from 3 to 8 billion rupees a year, when the salaried sector is paying 400 billion rupees. So on the agriculture side, this is the
now
first
specifically
time.
talking, I seek your partner for holding you over here for a second. Specifically talking about this particular sector, agriculture sector, we've also seen a statement by Mr. Nathan Porter regarding as to tapping the potential from the untapped sources in order to broaden the tax base. So what exactly is to be done, what could be possibly done in order to tap the very untapped potential from this particular agriculture sector that you've also mentioned constitute around 20% of GDP?
So the most important part to think through is that this is the only kind of income tax which is not with the federal government. One way could have been that we had taken it away from the provinces, and as all the other income taxes are with the federal government, we could have brought it to the federal government. But I think the decision has been that the provinces will now have horizontal equity on the agriculture income tax. That's the thought process. Whether IMF is there or not, that's, I think, even secondary. And I agree that Nathan has, made this untapped sectors, and agriculture is one of them. So let's start thinking about it, right? You agreed with the IMF. We wrote it down in a piece of paper, which is written by Pakistan, is Pakistan's program, is Pakistan's need. And we had said that we will go ahead and legislate, the 4 provinces will legislate an agriculture income tax by the end of October. By the time the fund came in, and this was a structural benchmark, none of the provinces had actually legislated it. They had moved some summaries through the cabinet. Then Punjab has gone ahead and done the legislation. So a lot of work will follow there. What are the rules? What are the regulations? What is going to be the structure? How do we create the horizontal equity? It's now for the other 3 provinces, and mainly KPK and Sindh, because there is more agriculture there, Sindh especially, to go ahead and legislate that horizontal equity, whatever you're paying on your salary, or I'm paying on my consultancy, or I'm paying, the manufacturer is paying on his or her income, that is the same kind of taxation that we'd have on the agriculture. We can probably, take it. There will be documentation issues. Yes, but that's been 77 years now, right? I mean, there is no way to think about this. And then to legislate. So that's the first step that we need to move on. And then the second is, of course, how do we bring in a sector which is 40% of Pakistan's economy, the retail and the wholesale. That's the other untapped sector I think Nathan Porter is talking about. How do we bring that sector into a proper income tax regime where we have registration of these people. I mean, it can't be that a few 100,000 are registered against the 3 to 3.5 million retailers and wholesalers in the country. So, you have to think about it. And, these brothers and sisters who work in this have to really think through. It just cannot be true that Pakistan moves into social cohesion. And now I keep mentioning the social cohesion word. I think it's become important in the kind of society that I see where everyone wants that the other person should pay their due share so that I can pitch in my share so that we can have equity in the country. So it's extremely important that these people are brought in. And the third sector, of course, remains to be the real estate, where we must have a capital gains tax. The provinces must tax the houses properly so that they can build cities. But having said all this, there is an onus on the FBR, there is an onus on the PRAs, the provincial revenue authorities. Pakistan, I was today addressing a seminar on a similar topic, and here's my take. Pakistan is a data-rich country. You have NADRA data, you have my flying data, you have my bank data, you have my telephone data, you have my energy sector payments data. What is it that you don't have about me? You have almost everything. Now it is FBR's duty to do the data mining and come out with those people, the high net worth clients, the people who are not only evading but not paying their whole share. So there are two kinds of categories. There is a tax gap, and the tax gap is because we are not taking money from where it should come. But the other part is that there are people who are not paying their due share. So now that is the work ahead of us. And then, of course, something the IMF won't do for Pakistan is the following: making the tax administration, the tax policy framework, the way we fill in the tax, so much easier for the people of Pakistan that they don't find it difficult to tax. Reduce the number of withholding, the advanced income taxes, get out of this indirect taxation base. That's the 3 to 5 year work that must come through. Again, the SBR and the PRA, I've heard that the present government has moved ahead and given them a 32 billion rupee package for FBR upgrade, equipment, salaries, cars, so that life's comfortable for them. But we must see that in terms of results in making the taxation administration easier for the people, making the taxation policy easier for the people of Pakistan, going away with the two taxes, especially that I've mentioned, the withholding and the advanced income tax we charge. I'll give you an example. We want the electricity bill to come down. We have a GST, we have an advanced income tax in the electricity bill. We should be thinking in the coming years how to get away from these kinds of taxation and move on to direct taxation of the two sectors that we talked about, and then capital gains on
Stay with
wherever
us
it's applicable.
quite comprehensively. You've elaborated in order to how to tap that untapped potential from those sources which have been alluded to by IMF Mission Chief Nathan Porter. Please stay with us. We are honored to be joined by another participant, Mr. Shikoh Atif, senior economist, joining us on the phone line. Mr. Atif, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. What's your understanding as to how Pakistani authorities can tap that very untapped potential from those untapped sources in order to broaden the tax base?
Well, the credibility of the tax system is always a little bit of a question all across the world. So even for Pakistan, the expenditure of the government is so humongous, and the impact that the common man sees is not as at the level that the taxation is demanding, at least right now. Of course, the points that have been made about bringing agriculture into the fold, bringing real estate into the fold, of course, they are very, very important. That is our economy. We are an agricultural country at the very core, and the issue with these developing countries like ours is that 80% of the resources are in the hands of 20% of the people, and if they don't pay their share, then but the overemphasis on indirect taxation in the government, along with the tremendous expenditure of the government. So we have a lot of money chasing a very few goods. What is going to happen? Inflation. So I think there is, while there is really, it's really, really important to focus tremendously on increasing the taxation base, and lots of tremendous strides have been made in that direction, and well done to the government. Of course, agriculture has to be brought into the fold. Again, the problem is economic, and the political power is in the same hand. So, and I'm not just focusing too much on Pakistan right now, but it's just that's what happens when the economic and the political power is in the same hands. They tend to not tax themselves. So agriculture is one of those areas, although we must remember also that 80% of the agriculturalist also is a small farmer. It's only 20-30% who are actually, when we talk about agriculture, are the big farmers. So that's kind of my sort of overview on this. But while we are talking about taxation, I think expenditure is a really important area. And as long as the government keeps pumping a lot of expenditure, there's going to be imbalances created in the economy, and the market forces are not going to take hold.
Right, Mr. Atif, when we talk about already Dr. Khaqan Najeeb was of the view that it's very important in order to ease the tax administration for the people. How crucial that one is in order to broaden the tax base?
Well, it really is important, but at the end of the day, to be honest with you, no matter what we do, we end up burdening the salaried class disproportionately. And of course, some ease, some simplicity will help. But right now, if at the end of the day there is no credibility with the tax system, at least with the salaried class, this victim, and victimization of the salaried class, until that comes to an end, there will be no credibility with the taxation system. And, as this is a game of sort of cat and mouse, and as long as there are people in our society that kind of get away with it, it's always going to incentivize those poor people who are like, I got trapped into this net. Although I must commend, the finance minister and the government has really taken Pakistan a lot further. And I really agree with the previous caller's point of view that we are a data-rich nation now, thanks to the efforts of this government, and even going back a little while. So it is easy. It's just a matter of will right now. It's not a matter of if we can tax everyone or not.
Right. Let me bring in Mr. Shami into the discussion once again. Mr. Shami, now these untapped sources of revenue, particularly when we talk about agriculture and the wholesale and retailers, how big is the potential, and what's exactly is required in order to tap that very potential from both of these particular sectors?
I will give a historical actually view of that. Actually, that I am not only in favor of the administrative measure that you increase more and more punishments and you increase this thing, because we have seen this in the last 75 years and it didn't work. It didn't work. Apart from that, we have to see the behavior of the people. There are two type of taxes, indirect, direct. Indirect, almost everybody is paying indirect. Purchasing salt, even salt, tea, sugar, even that person is paying, very, very poor class people are also paying that. The problem is with the direct taxes. But we have to go, though indirect taxation is not considered as a very good sign in the worldwide, but looking at our scenario in this country, because people are not habitual of paying the direct taxes, they don't consider it as a duty, rather they take it like a surcharge on them, So now we have to see their habits, they have the behavior. The behavior is this. Apart from these things, administrative measure, that there are lots of things which are untapped. Why they are untapped? We have to see these things. Why they are untapped? One basic thing is this, that we don't look at while we get the milk from the cow, we never look at the health of the cow, because the healthy cow will always give the more milk. But our administrative measures are that you charge taxes from those people who are already in the tax net, and you are paying more and more. So our approach is more vertical in the taxation system than the horizontal. That we don't want probably that that it should be broader based, like you are saying real estate, agriculture. Agriculture is most of actually basically it's a provincial subject, so federal government cannot impose looking at the constitutional classes, but even the the provinces they get it, so that will be good because they will definitely use their for their own sources. But here the problem is this one basic thing which I consider that which a big hurdle in increasing the tax net is that our tax rate is very high. Now it goes even up to 49%. Then when a person who is getting 100 rupees or 1 crore rupees every year, yearly, and he say that for doing nothing, he pays 50% of that. When you have the corporate tax also, you have the sales tax also, you have the import duty also. After paying that for their income tax, why should? So this is definitely a big challenge. I don't think that the country like Pakistan should have taxation up to 49%. It should be maximum 15%.
Right.
Because when you have so heavy taxation, you are putting 49%, then a person definitely goes for the unfair means. He said that he has got a lot of margin. Instead to pay government 49%, he paid 10% or 15% to the tax authorities, and so go for the unlawful. So this is why our you see the tax net is very few people are there. Still in the last year they say there's a huge increase in the tax net, and 66 million tax returns have come, but 50% of that are nil. So that you need to decrease the rate, and I personally feel that it should not be in more than 15% in any case, and broaden the tax net, bring everybody, most of the people will be happy. When the tax rate will be low down, most of the people say instead to go for the unfair mean to get guna and pay a rishwat or something.
A very pertinent point that
so
you made.
why not to pay to the government directly?
Yeah, a very important point made, Mr. Shami. Let me once again go back to Mr. Atif. Mr. Shikoh Atif, let's specifically talk about increased remittances now. In the last month, they've increased by $3 billion. What that particular increase in remittances is firstly indicative of, and what sort of an impact this increase of remittances has on the other key indicators of economy?
So it really is an important, can you hear me? It really is an important sign that, people outside of Pakistan, the credibility gap is narrowing, and through the measures that the government has taken, from the outside, it really, no government in the world is perfect. But the steps that the present government is taking, it certainly is building credibility with the people, especially outside. And a lot of concern that the government has actually shown towards the people living outside of Pakistan in the policy. So that's kind of connecting there as well. Lots of investment opportunities that the government is creating now. That is, it really is so inexpensive to invest in Pakistan right now for the returns that Pakistan garners. So that really is an important sign. I just want to finish one little thought about the taxation thing. That is not discussed very much in Pakistan. And that is, if Pakistan the economy has to get somewhere, the NFC award has to be relooked at. And, all the taxation going to the provinces and the federal government staying sort of muted and unable to invest in long-term success and growth of Pakistan, that really is a big challenge. An NFC award has to really be looked at if Pakistan has to progress economically in the future.
Right. Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, what's your understanding regarding as to increased remittances posting $3 billion last month? Firstly, what it is indicative of and what sort of an impact it does carry on the other indicators at the same time?
The macro stability has been that, as people have a bit more confidence in, sending remittances through formal channels instead of informal channels. And, we cracked down on the informal channels, which were these kind of B, C, D category kind of the money changers. So that helped. The Afghan transit trade crackdown helped. The smuggling crackdown helped. And lastly, what I think really helped was that as our reserves build up, the rupee, considering all these things, has stabilized around 278 to a dollar. And the difference between the formal sector and the informal sector has almost become negligible. So there is no incentive for people to send their remittances through informal channels. Also, what you have to remember is that when you send money through informal channels, there is a fear of loss. There is a fear of delays. But now formal channels are working quite well. So you have A category money changers, you have the formal channels through the banks working well, and you have a stable rupee. So we've gone to about $3 billion a month. Pakistan's remittance overall has been formal and the informal sector. So what you have seen is formalization of the informal remittances. Also, there is a PRI which helps incentivize the banks to get more money through the formal channel. And the third thing is that you have seen an higher exodus of people going and working abroad. In the last 5 to 7 years, you see about 800,000 people leaving Pakistan. This figure used to be 400 to 450,000 people a year. Now we see nearly 850,000 people over the last 5 years. That's the average that we are seeing. If you see that kind of average, obviously the remittances have gone up. Jawad, I think we've had a lot of discussion today on the fact that Pakistan's taxation has to help Pakistan's fiscal consolidation. But there is another side of the picture which I always think is extremely important and extremely worth mentioning, and that's our expenditure side. A lot of work would have to be done in the coming years so that our expenditures, whether that's our subsidies, whether that's our money we spend on the SOEs, that's the money that the federal government should not be spending on programs that is the purview of the provinces, the 17 subjects that the federal government runs, the Benazir Income Support Program, which is poverty again is a subject with the provinces that has to be devolved to the provinces. All this work is also essential. And then cutting down of the federal agencies, cutting down of the federal government, the number of employees we hold, cutting down on the current expenditures of the provinces, streamlining the PSDP. As I started my conversation with you, the fund engagement has bought us this precious time, this precious space. All the things that we've talked about today are fundamental policy changes and fundamental structural changes, whether that's on the taxation side, whether that's on the expenditure side. This is the next 2 to 3 years of Pakistan. If you want to see a Pakistan which is not with the fund 3 years down the road, then on the fiscal side, this consolidation has to be as heavy on the taxation as it has to be on the expenditure side. Just managing Pakistan's taxation would not alone solve the issue, because we did increase our current expenditure this year by 22%. We did jack up our PSDP. All these things have to be managed in a perspective. I think the government has also moved on the privatization front, on cutting down the departments of the divisions in Pakistan, as well as trying to devolve some subject. NFC is an area we should move on, but the National Fiscal Pact is short of the NFC work that we could do if we didn't have these 8th NFC that we could have moved on. So hopefully in the National Fiscal Pact, some of the work that we should have done on the NFC front can be handled. But I think let's hope that all the work that we've talked about finds the good ear of the policymakers, and Pakistan can move ahead and to make these changes so that the fiscal consolidation from running 7 to 8% of GDP of fiscal deficits, we could come down to much more sustainable 3 to 5% as we exit the program 3 years from now, having done tremendous work on the broadening of the taxation and bringing quality to the expenditure, not only bringing the quantity down. I think that's Pakistan's future.
Dr. Najeeb, please stay with us. I have to go to Mr. Shikoh Atif for a quick comment from his side regarding as to the trend that we have witnessed at the Pakistan stock exchanges today, also touching the record highs of 95,856 points. Mr. Atif, how do you see this particular bullish trend? This has been continuous in the recent past as far as Pakistan stock exchange is concerned. How do you look at that?
So while it is, of course, a matter of great pride and great joy, and of course, I always say Pakistan is really inexpensive as far as an investment opportunity is concerned. However, there is also an international bull market going on. So Pakistan does benefit from that as well, and there is a lot of deregulation internationally. So I mean, I don't want to like dampen the spirits or anything, but Pakistan, while there are unique opportunities in Pakistan, and Pakistan stock market was really inexpensive for a very long time. But this latest flow is also a part of a global trend of markets hitting record highs and has to do with some change in the U.S. Political system also.
Mr. Shikoh Atif, senior economist, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Mr. Shami, now this increase in remittances, what's your understanding? What led to that? What is this particular phenomenon indicative of? And what potential lies ahead regarding?
Before replying your question, I would like to add something about the stock exchange,
Please go ahead.
Because
I was about to come with the same question right after this particular.
Okay,
if you want to start with that,
okay,
please go
that's
ahead.
good. Actually, the thing is that if we are looking at the stock market, that is going to cross 95,000 point, and the historical was 54,000 in 2017. But if we look in the dollar term, still we are short by 40%, because that time dollar was 100 rupees. 100 rupees a dollar, so our value of the asset, overall capitalization is still short. So I have been saying when it crossed 50,000.
There is an increase in market capitalization also.
In rupee term, but if you look at the dollar term.
Both in rupee and dollar terms.
Though,
I mean, in dollar terms, it is more as compared to in rupees term.
No, but it was, if you compare it with the 2017 when it was higher at 54,000, it crossed 54,000, that time the dollar was 100 rupees, So a share value, which was 100 rupees mean, if the share value was $100, it means 1 rupee. Now if it's 150, it means that it is half of that. So it was capitalization still low. So there is a potential that the stock market can grow up to 150. After 150,000, so this is still undervalued, very much undervalued. I mean, a lot of shares are very much undervalued because I usually buy that, so I take care of that. So still it needs to grow at least 50,000 more to achieve that level of the 2000.
And what's required for that, for touching that particular record? I mean,
political stabilization is the major subject. Political stabilization, continuation of policies.
That's what Prime Minister's talked about also, that it's a prerequisite for bringing in economic stability.
Economic stability depends upon your political. If there is no any political hush posh or something, I am very sure that in 1 year it will cross 150.
So if it crosses that record of 150,000 in a year, if there comes political stability, so I mean, how's that going to work out? I mean, the market capitalization, both in terms of dollars and rupee, is going to be higher.
Very higher. Look, the world, the outside the world, they look at your economy health, from two aspects. One is the health of your stock exchange, and other is what amount the FDI coming in this country. Because here, if they see that continuously it is increasing, definitely more investment will come, FDI will come, and FDI, the volume of FDI which is coming, that is actually seen by the person who is sitting around.
So at the moment as we speak, this particular record trend, the bullish trend at the Pakistan Stock Exchange, that is on an upward trajectory. We'll also see that foreign direct investment also increasing. So both of them have a good health at the moment.
Good health, and the perspective is, because this is the stock exchange work on the future prospect, that is on the speculative basis. What is going to happen after 5 months? What is going to happen after 6 months? So that is a speculative. You must have seen that the future trading is also going on. So this is also, it's a mixture, but it shows the health of the country's economic health is shown by the strength of the stock exchange and the volume of the FDI which is coming in the country. So these those things you always have to take care. Whenever you look at the economic health, you have to see
So
this thing.
how heartening it is for Pakistan to see that this particular health on both the fronts, FDI, currently as we speak, and this Pakistan Stock Exchange is positive, and how bigger an incentive it can actually portray to the outer world more for bringing in more investment here in Pakistan based on the health that we currently see of both of these.
For the stock exchange, you know, our most of our big scripts like oil, OGDC and PPL, they are undervalued. They're undervalued in the sense that their earning per share is, you know, about 35–40%, you know, in some cases, you know, where it is very high in the, is considered very high in the country. So most of our share are undervalued, still undervalued. So I think that there is a lot of room in the Pakistan stocks that it can increase, and then we have to bring more IPOs here, you know, we have to more IPOs here to make, and then give the confidence to them. And whereas the FDI is concerned, you know, you have to open up like this. I mean, the 3–4 sector which SIFC has taken, like corporate farming. Corporate farming has a huge potential in this country, huge potential. And there we can expect a lot of FDI because the food security is a big issue, particularly is coming up, it's a big issue coming up in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia and some Arab countries. They have even invested in corporate farming in far-flung area like South America.
Right.
So this is where this is very difficult to bring their transportation cost is very high. Pakistan is very near to them. I think this is having a huge potential for the corporate farming. Mining is another sector. I mean, apart from that, Balochistan, you know, record egg, we don't talk about the salt. Our pink salt, you know, which can be so. I mean, it's a rough estimated that if proper investment is made that, and Pakistan is able to introduce its own pink salt brand, you know, then about $15 to $16 billion you can only generate from here. And then, so I mean, this is a
Point well taken. Unfortunately, we are short of time. I'll have to once again, IT sector.
Okay.
That holds a huge potential as well.
IT has a lot of potential because there's a huge class, you know, huge, I think, number 2 class in the freelance, you know, they are working here, and they always, so only the need is there that we have to make our, you know, population, our labor force more productive. The problem is that the training and the education standard, and you know, these are not very high in this country, which is why their potential, their you know, that is little less than the Chinese and the Indian Filipinos.
I have to take the closing comments from Dr. Khaqan Najeeb also. Dr. Najeeb, are you with us? I think we've lost the connection with Dr. Khaqan Najeeb. It was wonderful discussion, very insightful discussion with Dr. Khaqan Najeeb and Mr. Humayun Iqbal Shami. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. You happen to be President of Pakistan Economic Forum. We really appreciate you taking time out for views on news tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.